Welcome back to On Texas Football. I'm Jeff Howe, joined by CJ Vogel. Going to talk about Arch Manning ahead of Saturday's game against UTEP and look at where Arch and Steve Sarkisian can grow together through the rest of non-conference play leading into SEC play. I want to take a quick second to thank the sponsors of our game day coverage here at On Texas Football. Tito's, Flight by Yingling, and Von Lane. Thank you to those three entities for sponsoring us. Also, don't forget, join Bobby and company. We're partnering with our friends at Surly Horns for the pregame tailgate. $200 in Duck Camp giveaways at the tailgate. So make sure you head on down, say hi to Bobby, and check out everything. Again, thanks to our friends at Surly Horns for partnering with us. CJ, I want to start this with the question you had for Sark. Now, you asked Sark about play action passes, but I'm going to let you set this up. What led you down this road to want to dig deeper into the play action numbers for the Texas pass game?
Yeah, it was a conversation that Rod Babers and I had on Monday evening, after the San Jose State game that really led us both to believe that straight dropbacks is really where you see Arch Manning thrive in the passing game. And the numbers back that up. Arch under center, the numbers aren't pretty, Jeff, and it tells quite a different story from what we've seen with Arch when he's on and he's rolling, like the fourth quarter against Ohio State and also in that stretch against San Jose State where Texas was putting points on the board, right? We look at the PFF grades, and again, it's PFF, take it for a grain of salt, but out of 141 qualifying quarterbacks, Arch in straight dropbacks is the second best in the entire country. When you turn him into a play action passer where his back is turned or where he is under center and you really have to turn your back on a defense, he grades out as the 136th quarterback. Quite the discrepancy there, Jeff. So all in all, plenty to learn about Arch, plenty to learn about Sarkisian and how he uses Arch. And this weekend, again, is a great opportunity for that play action pass to take a step in the right direction.
So as we get into this cut, again, just looking at the Pro Football Focus numbers on play action passes this year, which Arch about 38% of his dropbacks, Texas has used play action. 15 of 24, 153 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, a Pro Football Focus grade of 47.7. That is, as you said, CJ, it's near the bottom of qualifying quarterbacks in the FBS. When Texas does not use play action, though, a PFF passing grade of 92.6, that's about as elite as you can get. Arch on those 42 dropbacks, 21 for 36, 312 yards, 3 touchdowns, does have 1 interception, but also 2 drops. So again, Arch elite at play action. Again, this is Sark answering CJ's question about the drop back passing game, specifically the play action passing game that Texas has utilized through the first 2 games.
Yeah, I thought it's been good. Obviously when you get under center to play pass, you kind of have to get under center to do a few other things too. And we've gotten under center and ran the ball a little bit more than we have historically. We got under center last week and ran a jet sweep to Ryan Wingo, something that we haven't really done. And so we just try to evolve and play to the strengths of the guys. I think Arch is very comfortable under center in his mechanics. And here's a guy who's been studying the quarterback position his whole life. And so, I'm sure watching his uncles and mimicking those things in the backyard when he was a kid, it's a little more comfortable for him. I feel like it helps our run game some in that, when you look at a back like C4, him to be able to line up 7.5 yards behind the quarterback, run downhill, get his pad square and be physical, but I also think it helps the play action pass game, CJ, not to, I'm getting to your answer now. Because I do think there's something to be said about the quarterback, turning his back to the line of scrimmage, the offensive line with an opportunity to fire out. It gives a little bit of a different feel than when the quarterback's just in the gun and the running back's coming across. And so we're trying to create those voids in the secondary and those intermediate throws. And, we hit a couple of those. I think we hit Jordan Washington on a pretty nice one last week. I think the 12 personnel stuff has been good for us, getting under center and doing those things. And we're always evolving, we're always adapting and adapting. And sometimes you have to go back to adapt. And a lot of the stuff we're doing right now is kind of similar to what we did with Mac Jones in 2020 at Alabama. He had a real level of comfort there. Again, we've got a lot of offense and then it's trying to tap into the areas where we think we're at our best, that our players we can put them in the best position to be successful.
So CJ, what do you make of Sark's answer that, hey, this is kind of new to the offense? It's new to, it's something Texas really hasn't done too much under Sark. And do you want them to keep working on it to see if it changes, or do you think it's time to, hey, just call a spade, ditch it, and just let Arch roll without using play action?
You're going to have to use play action. But on top of that, you're going to have to get that running game figured out first, right? Texas doesn't have a rush by a running back longer than 20 yards. So if you're not allowing defenses to sit up there in the box and have the threat of the run game at the front of their minds, well, you're doing your play action pass game a disservice. So this is something that Texas will certainly need in the SEC. And we've seen it evolve from Quinn to Arch. Quinn was more of a quick style RPO guy that could get the ball out at any arm slot. Arch, I think, wants to be in that same conversation, Jeff. But as we've seen early through 2 weeks, that's not necessarily his strength, right? His strength is surveying the field and understanding in the pre-snap where defenses are going to be. That allows him to make plays and, kind of anticipate where routes will be open down the field. But there's a difference, right? Taking his eyes off of where safeties and cornerbacks are headed and understanding that the pressure might be coming a little bit quicker as a result of not necessarily keeping eyes on guys coming off the edge. That speeds up that internal clock quite a bit. So that play action realm in which, look, the middle of the field should be open, like we saw in that bang 8 route to Ryan Wingo against San Jose State that was dropped, that should be there for Arch. That should be there for the Texas offense, but it comes together full circle for Arch, knowing that he has protection, knowing that his routes will be open, and understanding that it's fine to check down, but it's also okay to allow those routes to develop down the field. Again, something that he hasn't been great at this year, but that's the difference from Quinn to Arch is it's more RPO style a year ago and over the last 3 years than what we're seeing, rather than a true play action under center downhill running style that Texas has utilized through 2 weeks this year.
So this, CJ, is why, to your point, play action is so important. You can't just ditch it. You got to have it in your offense. When you look at passing depths, and again, I feel like every time we talk about PFF numbers, we've talked about it this week, you got to mention, hey, it's a 2-game sample. That's all you got to go on. But you look at passing depths, by far, Arch's best depth of the field is anything 20 yards plus down the field. He's basically an average quarterback on throws that go behind the line of scrimmage up to about 19 yards. But on the deep ball, CJ, a 92.1 Pro Football Focus passing grade. He's 7 of 13 for 284 and 3 touchdowns. 5 what Pro Football Focus describes as big-time throws. Does have 2 turnover-worthy plays, but Arch is elite when you're talking about the deep ball. Again, all 7 of those completions, obviously going for first downs, a 106.8 NFL passer rating on the deep ball. CJ, the best way to utilize your deep ball is if you've got play action. But again, to your point, you've got to get the run game going, and you got to have the offensive line step up, because I've found this part fascinating through 2 games. Arch has been blitzed roughly on 40% of his dropbacks, which consequently he's been under pressure for about 40% of his dropbacks. Basically, we saw it from San Jose State especially. They attacked the Texas offensive line. A lot of movement, a lot of games, trying to cause confusion. Arch under pressure, again, probably just an above-average quarterback, 9 for 20, 167 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. But like all quarterbacks, CJ, when he's kept clean, he's really good, 27 for 40, 298 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. And one thing that I do think, we talked about this a little bit this week, that I think is really good with Arch, his pressure to sack rate is really, really low. Yes. Only two times he's been sacked this year. A 7.4 pressure sack rate. Last year, if you look like the Georgia game, for instance, the regular season game, I think Quinn Ewers was in the 20s. And the Texas overall pressure to sack rate was in the 20s, almost pushing the 30s against Georgia last year, just to give you a frame of reference. So, CJ, Arch's athleticism does help, but it's on the offensive line, the tight ends, the backs, everybody working in concert to protect the passer, to communicate, and just play assignment sound football. Give your guy a chance to go make plays.
Yeah, and we've seen it from Arch before, right? In his snaps a year ago, he was actually a pretty good play action passer, believe it or not. But I say that because average distance of target last year to this year, relatively the same, both in the mid 11s. But the turnover worthy play percentage a year ago was about 25% of what it was currently through 2 weeks, right? It was about 4.1% a year ago. This year, sitting right around 15.4. On top of that, the yards per attempt almost double that a year ago of what we're seeing so far this season. So it's there for Arch. Again, I go back to trusting that offensive line, and maybe it's a little bit of not being on the same page with those wide receivers who are pretty new in terms of understanding where Arch will be. That tight end room, brand new, receiving passes from Arch Manning. So we'll see how they continue to develop, but this is going to be a piece of the Texas offense, and it needs to improve if that Texas offense wants to come close to its ceiling in 2025.
To your point, CJ, about Arch's athleticism, it's the feel for the game and recognizing the blitz where he's improved in just his overall pocket presence. Last year, pressured roughly the same amount of times in his whole sample last year as he's been through 2 games this year. Last year, his pressure to sack rate was 26.9%. That's not very good. So he's cut down on that a lot. And again, CJ, you mentioned this last year. If you look at his Pro Football Focus passing grade on play action passes versus non-play action last year, and again, you're talking about 47 dropbacks where you used play action last year, 54 non-play action. It's the exact same grade. So Arch was effective in both areas. Texas has to get this together. As we close, CJ, I want to get your thoughts on this. I looked at this from last year. Arch last year on screen passes, roughly about 20% of his throws last year were screen-based throws. Again, right, average, almost slightly above average. A Pro Football Focus passing grade of 68.8, 18 for 20, 149 yards and a touchdown. But on non-screen throws, his PFF passer grade shot up to 88.7, 43 for 70, 790 yards, 8 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. You go look, CJ, through 2 games this year, it's pretty much exactly the same. Yeah. His PFF passing grade on screen passes, and again, he's had 12 of those, a 68.6 on non-screen passes, 84.1. So I think we're starting to figure out, hey, less screen game, which we figured would be the case, moving from Quinn to Arch. Got to get the play action figured out. Got to get your pass protection figured out, because the more opportunities you've got to let Arch drive the ball down the field, the better off your pass game is going to be.
Yeah, I think so. And again, I look at 12 personnel as a remedy for Arch, especially with dinged up wide receivers. It makes sense to go to one of the deepest tight end rooms Texas has had in 15 or 20 years, right? Utilize those tight ends. And you look back at 12 personnel and how efficient it was, not just against Ohio State, where Texas ran the ball very efficiently, but also against San Jose State, where the 5 most explosive plays accumulated for 216 total yards. Jeff, that sounds pretty darn good to me. But on top of that, your explosive play rate was superb in 12 personnel. That's where I look as a remedy for not just the play action, but for that screen game as well, in which you can get Jack Injuries or Nick Townsend the ball in space and allow those offensive linemen to go make plays down the field.
Yeah, I got onto Sark a lot for running tight end screen with Jatavian Sanders because it never really worked. Now you've got tight ends where it can actually work. So let's see the tight end screen a little bit more. Blessed, like you said, Jordan Washington, you got some really good receiving tight ends. So let's see if Texas can take advantage of it and what product they put on the field, not just on Saturday against UTEP, but against Sam Houston next week as the non-conference schedule hits the halfway point. CJ, thank you for the knowledge and expertise as always. Thank you to Matthew behind the scenes for producing it. I want to thank the sponsors for our game day coverage at On Texas Football. Tito's Handmade Vodka, Flight by Yingling, and Von Lane. If you're not a member over at ontexasfootball.com, get over to the site right now. Sign up using the promo code OTFOG. That'll get you 1 year of access at ontexasfootball.com for $39.95. Also, make sure you like this video and that you're subscribed to the On Texas Football YouTube channel. That way, whether it's before, during, or after every Texas football game, you're not missing any bit of information that the On Texas Football staff is reporting this fall. For CJ, for Matthew, for the entire On Texas Football staff, I'm Jeff Howe. Thank you so much for watching and listening. And until next time, welcome.